So, tackling the idea of doomerism in a lot of young men, well, young people in general, of course, but I'm speaking on the young male's perspective. I think one major source of it is, in general, the economy. The forecast for the economy, things don't look good. It's not rosy cheeks. People worried about the American dream and all this other shit. The word recession, the word inflation being tossed around, and it instills a sort of fear in the heart, and it makes you wonder whether or not things are going to be okay, or things are going to be good. Am I going to be okay? Is is what I'm putting my effort to in terms of a career going to be worth it at the end of 4 years, at the end of 3 years, after this certification? And these thoughts can really consume you to the point where it stays your feet. You don't do anything. Um, I think people like NEETs, NEETS, non in education, employment, or training. I think one major source of why people become NEETs is that sort of perpetual anxiety, where you're so hyper aware of what's going on and what could occur, and how fragile things are, that you kind of just freeze up, right? And it may not be like an active freeze. Like you can still operate on the day to day. You can still behave like a normal person, a functioning individual, right? But one thing that what I mean by freeze is freeze in terms of your decisions to advance a career, or your decisions to advance your state in life. Maybe you just don't see any way out, or a feasible way out, and you kind of just want to remain where you are perpetually, right? You stay with your parents, you play the same video games, you do the same things because it's sort of a soothing thing. The only way that you know how to cope with a ever-changing environment and ever-changing life. But you also are kind of stuck in this perpetual purgatory of always feeling behind, especially when you compare yourself to other people online, or even people you call your friends, your peers. Maybe they're off getting degrees, they're off getting married, they're off having children, and you are a little bit on the other end of the timeline, where you're still, you know, maybe you're not fully arrested. Maybe you're in terms of development. Maybe you're pursuing a degree. Maybe you're in the middle of a program, or you're pursuing an education. You're pursuing a career, and you see that other people are at various points in life, and you have this perpetual fear in your mind that, God, I'm so behind. I'm always so behind. There's so much more ahead of me. Yada yada, and that's a whole separate discussion. But I think the economy has an element to it where it's a strange cycle, right? And this is an offshoot, but it just came to mind, right? Uh, a recession makes people sad. People like to cope and deal with the sadness, right? And it's a good thing, but some people do a negative thing to cope, and what they do is flex. And people who don't have what they have a return sense of sadness, right? So it's interesting, like the Tai Lopez videos, the scammers back in the early days of crypto, or the early days of self-improvement and shit. This was in the wake of the 2008 recession, something completely dramatic. People, the gap between the rich and the poor was never greater. Well, I mean, of course, in the Depression it was, but it was really made apparent when people were struggling with money, and predators like Tai Lopez, well, financial predators at least, are taking advantage of that by instilling a sense of insecurity by flexing on you, right? In general, influencers, the average person, they're trying to make up for the fact that they don't have money. Um, they're trying to make up for the fact that they need to keep up with the Joneses, keep up with a high lifestyle. That you'll never have a single person look at you and say, "Hey, I'm struggling." Right? I've met people who are honest enough to say that, and I really appreciate that level of honesty. But people inherently like to maintain a sort of self image to themselves, but they have to express it to others, so that way it's, I guess, real, and like it's out of their own mind and it's proven to others, therefore it's real, it's in real life, right? By flexing. And it's a very negative way of doing that, and it's not always like overt flexing, like someone shines a bedazzled watch in your face, and that has happened to me before. It's more like a maintenance of image. They buy a new car, they buy a fancy car, they buy a Lexus, they buy a Mercedes, they buy a Benz, they buy a Camaro, they buy a Cybertruck. It's a subtle flex, it's a raise of status, even though you can't afford it. The emperor's clothes are not really there, you know, that kind of shit. And I like to point to the screen here. I mean, no greater is this shown in the insane levels of credit card debt the average American is incurring. It's insane, even higher than it was in 2008. And you might say this is, you know, a sort of reaction to inflation. You know, things are more expensive. People have to take the credit card debt to supplement that, and that's you're absolutely right. That's a major element to it. I'm not saying flexing is what drives the economy. I'm not saying flexing is a major part of the economy. I'm sure a lot of people are incurring these debts to make ends meet, and I'm not talking about those people. What I'm talking about are the people who are leveraging their credit, leveraging their debt to maintain a higher status to their neighbors, to other people, so that way they can kind of not just build up a greater sense of self-image in their own mind, but maintain it, especially in terms of higher times. Like if a recession occurs and you have less money, well, the worst, so for some people, the worst thing that could ever happen to them is for them to lose their money, is for them to look poor, is for their lifestyle to reflect their finances. You have people who are very destitute, but on the surface you wouldn't know. On the surface, all you do is count their blessings, the ones that are visible, but you'll never realize how much it actually costs them to maintain those blessings, right? I've heard it time and time again. Young guy buys a car, crazy monthly payments, crazy insurance, and can he afford it? Depends who you ask. If you ask him, of course you can. He can pay it. Money comes in, you know, like 1,000 comes in, 900 goes out. Yeah, he can afford it. But can he really afford it? Can he comfortably afford it? No, he can't. But what is he doing? He's maintaining the image. Or he's not just maintaining the image. He's garnering a new image, right? I finally made it. I'm buying a car. That's fantastic. That makes me look cool. That is just a sweet fucking ride. You know what I mean? And they go down that road. And that's why we also see, and if you look at the screen, the average car payment is just absolutely fucking bonkers, even for used cars. And I get it. Inflation. I understand. However, this is not even on par with inflation. This is beyond the inflation that we've seen in general. This is actually more of a reaction to market supply and demand, right? We saw that with the chip shortage. Now, in the wake of the chip shortage, the prices haven't been removed yet. Like, you have a catalyst event like the chip shortages in trucks and cars, right? That is a reason for individual trucks and cars to skyrocket, right? There's a crazy demand for them. There's always a demand for them. And the supply is not met up. Okay, makes sense. You know, this is economics 101. However, the demand never went away. The price remained high, and it's because they could still charge it. Now, cars in general, whether used or new, are a whole different slew of dynamics. People's attitudes towards new cars, their reliabilities, people valuing older cars because they're more reliable. That's a whole higher level of dynamics and shit. But I'm telling you right now, for something like a F-150, right, with a decent package, or something like a Cybertruck, to be flirting with 60, 70K, and a Cybertruck touching 100,000. For a BMW SUV to just be a flat out 100,000. I mean, back in the day, that was a third of a mortgage, right? Now, it's not inflation. I'm telling you, it's not inflation. Because if I'm supposed to believe the Federal Reserve and that CPI 6%, and that it just doesn't coincide. The charts do not look the same at all. If everything is going up in price, right, 1x, the price of new cars and used cars have multiplied at 3 or 4x, honestly, because of how much market demand there is. Now, is this demand coming in the wake of some sort of cataclysmic EMP event in which like every single car from the past 20 years was just destroyed and we need new ones and there's a crazy demand? No, the demand is coming from, well, Americans are just car hungry in general, to be honest, right? But the demand is coming from people who want to keep up with an image that they can buy the latest, they can buy the greatest, they can buy the newest, and they'll buy it for almost any price. They'll buy it for almost any price because they can be given any sort of funding. And I promise you, this point on cars will tie again later in this discussion about the economy. CPI inflation in general has really hurt, right? I mean, yeah, it's cool to 2.9, but I can't believe the New York Times are saying the case for a Fed rate cut. I mean, they should have done it ages ago. Like, is it as bad as the 80s? No, but it's pretty damn fucking bad. You know, they had to do that in the 80s to curve. I'm not gonna sign up for the New York Times. I just want your fucking chart. All right, let me just go to images. They had to raise interest rates to curve the inflation index in the 70s and the 80s, which is why we had such a recession in the 70s. Now, I'm jumping ahead because I haven't established a baseline. Some people listening to this video don't know the history of it or are somewhat familiar with it, you know, but I don't think I'm enough of a effective orator or a speaker and knowledgeable enough to give you the full nitty-gritty on the baseline of the context of the situation that we're currently in and what happened in the 80s and what happened in the 70s. But what I'm trying to express is what we're seeing right now isn't all too unfamiliar to the United States, one, and two, isn't all too unfamiliar to national economies, and one that really parallels this is Japan in the 90s. Now, the social ramifications of the recession of Japan and how it affected the youth is another fascinating, absolutely fascinating discussion that I would love to go into. But we're going to stay on topic here and talk about the American economy and you. I think that should be the title of this video, right? You as a young man who, yada yada, you're feeling some type of way about it. Okay, cool. Here's the thing. I remember watching for the past 4 years this channel, right? Is stock market evaluation. I mean, this guy's a bear, but I kind of took his shit with like a grain of salt because what he's saying is absolutely true. He's interpreting everything correctly, right? But he basically said this, like, look, if the economy is a bundle of highly flammable sticks, because we're seeing weaknesses in this sector, we're seeing weaknesses in this sector, we're seeing weaknesses in the American consumer, we're seeing weaknesses in the equity market, the stock market, we're seeing weaknesses even in housing, right? If these weaknesses you can refer to as sort of bubbles, right? We're seeing all these weaknesses that can't stand on their own. In a healthy economy, they kind of rise and fall on their own in a natural cyclical cycle, right? Cyclical cycle, holy shit. It really is 12 a.m. But here's the real question that he was asking. We have all these highly flammable sticks, and they could all spontaneously combust at once, right? But like in 2008, subprime loans for housing, you know, CDOs, tranches, all this other shit. I mean, we all saw The Big Short, right? That in itself was a hidden accelerant, right? Like if you have that whole pile of flammable wooden sticks, what's the can of gas in the middle of that pile that is going to get shot, that is going to get a spark thrown at it, right? What's going to take this pile of sticks and make it look like it's Burning Man? Now, here's the question. Is that model accurate? That's, again, another whole discussion. But I have a guess. I have a real guess here, right? My guess is there's not really going to be a hidden accelerant, right? I think that we're going to have a scenario that is very reminiscent of the 70s. Not just because of its inflationary scenario, but because of the weakness of the economy in the 70s in the wake of inflation. Inflation is a very nasty thing because what it does is it kind of takes away the sort of energy and vigor of the American consumer and the American investor, because they have to be tight with their money, right? The American consumer can't go out and buy everything they want to buy, right? They can't go out and buy a new house. I mean, right now you can't because of competition with corporate entities like REITs, real estate investment trusts, BlackRock, other banks like that. Okay, fine, but the consumer can't spend. They can't buy boats. I went to Bass Pro Shop the other day actually, and they had me fill out a survey. Now I had some time to kill while I was waiting for a transfer, and one of the questions that Bass Pro was asking their consumers on the survey is, has what's going on in the economy affected your ability to buy and spend money on outdoor activities that you would like to pursue? And it made me think to myself, it's like, wow, Bass Pro's asking this because it's actually hurting their bottom line. They're seeing less people buy John boats. They're seeing less people buy bass boats, which can be from $2,000 to $10,000 to $20,000. They're seeing people buy less saltwater boats. This is big money we're talking about here. Big money's scared, and we know that because big money's not putting their money in the equity market. That's why it's so fragile, right? If big money wasn't so scared, and I'm not just talking about entities and corporations, I'm talking about not the 1%, well, even the 1%, but people in the middle, your doctor, your lawyer type, they make around 200 plus, whatever. If they're scared, if they're going to their investment advisor and saying, hey, let's play it safe, I don't know what's going on, let's do the boring shit, let's do bonds, right? Let's take the money out of the equity market, let's do that, right? And they're also cutting back on their hobbies and choosing cheaper hobbies. They're selling some of their shit, right? They're buying less expensive cars. It kind of clogs up the blood in the normally flowing circular system that is the American economy, right? You don't want that to happen. Money is great when it's saved. However, it's really great when it's spent. When it circles around, when exchanged hands, it's a sign of a healthy economy. It's a sign that people aren't afraid of tomorrow. But when you have inflation and no end to it in sight, people gotta hunker down. Things are costing way too much. People become the frivolous spending that they would normally do for things like concert tickets, for things like bass boats and all this other shit, for cars, for new cars. They can't really do that much, right? The demand goes down, but the supply is still there, and the bottom lines of these corporate entities still have to be met. So what do they have to do? They can either cut prices, which they cannot afford to do, right? Or they keep it up, and they still keep it up, which is why you can't buy a new car for as much as you could 5 years ago. I still don't think the chip shortage is affecting cars as much as it back then. Of course, back in 2021, of course it did. Now it's not a supply thing, it's a stubbornness, right? Who's gonna blink first, the consumer or the bottom line of the dealership? And most dealerships are not doing it. They don't care if their parking lot is full to the brim with new cars that just aren't moving, right? They need to make a sale because someone's got to move that metal, someone's got to buy that metal at some point. Let's tie it all back, right? What's the hidden accelerant? Now, I'm going to take a guess. This is a very uneducated guess, but maybe it's something unoriginal, right? Maybe I'm leaning towards three scenarios, okay? One, there is no accelerants. We're just going to have a very sticky inflation like in the 70s until the Federal Reserve mans up and raises interest rates and plunges us to a very bad recession. But we get recovered at some point. I don't know, because the last time we had something recession tier was 2008, and what did we do? We went and had quantitative easing into the stock market, right? And what it were like you want to why tech companies the last 15 years were staying afloat and absolutely dominated the S&P 500. Yeah, social media, made them a lot of money, all this other shit. Yeah, okay, I get it from a fundamental level. Here's the thing, though. They were getting quantitative easing up the ass, bro. People were being paid to invest. I mean, money was just being pumped into the market, just to recover from the fundamental heartbreak that 2008 occurred. I mean, large institutions, banks, failed in 2008. I mean, it takes a lot to kill something like that, right? So to recover from it, to keep it up, to keep up the charade, you have to have quantitative easing. You can't do that anymore in the wake of inflation. You can't pump money into the equities market when you're dealing with too much money in the system in general. And that they had to do it again. They had to plunge. They called it the plunge protection team. You believe that shit, right? They had to save the economy again during COVID when everything came to a halt, right? Well, all that money's got to go somewhere, and the problem is there's too much blood in the system. There's only so much blood burning, blood letting you can do. You can't. It's just there, dude. It's just there. Some insane figure about how COVID produced about what 40% of all dollars we use now was printed in the last 4 years. I mean, this is a huge disaster. A huge disaster. I mean, it's insane, really, right? So, where do we go from here? So, one, we either get a 70s scenario, right? We got off the gold standard, sticky inflation, we got to pump interest rates. But two, the counterpoint to that scenario is, well, we really haven't seen a real economy in a long fucking time. And by real, I mean outside of the influence of the government in terms of pumping money directly into the market. At least in my lifetime, right? I mean, 2008. How old was I when 2008 happened? Like 7, right? But for a majority of my adolescence and into my early 20s, right? All we've ever done is pump money in this market. I truly have never seen a real economy. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen a real economy. So if we all of a sudden have a 70s scenario and we have to do something that is so unfamiliar, such as cutting back and being realistic and being responsible with our money at a national level, holy shit, dude. Maybe it turns into a Great Depression too. We were gonna try and handle the fucking monster that we've made now, like we did in the 70s and 80s, and we end up creating a fucking depression. Holy shit. Maybe, right? Scenario 2 is another one, right? And it's one that's actually very interesting. And I have the page up right here. Scenario 2 staring right in front of me. Maybe it's something unoriginal, right? What happened in 2008? We had subprime loans. The economy kind of went down a bit. Banks had to raise interest rates. Those variable interest rate loans, all of a sudden, were completely unaffordable to the people who took them out, who were already risk groups, financially speaking, for these banks. The banks approved them anyway. What are you going to do, right? Here's the thing. We have 2 major sectors of the U.S. economy that still operate with the idea of subprime loans, right? One is student loans, because you can still, in this country, take student loans out that have a variable interest rate. And 2, which, by the way, I don't think federal student loans have variable interest rates, but you can't default on those federal ones. So that's scary in itself. Different discussion, of course. But you can still take student loans in this country that are variable interest rates, right? That's point 1. And who is it affecting? It's affecting the youth of America, the people who are the most vulnerable, who don't have a dollar to their name, that are taking these mass amounts of money out on their name to kind of make a not make a gamble, but they're trying to better themselves in the future. It's a noble effort, trust me. But those variable interests, if the economy plunges, are gonna be fucking brutal. That's if those variable interests aren't actually the hidden accelerants in themselves, which is guess number one. Guess number two is the hidden accelerant is actually vehicle loans, right? You still have subprime vehicle loans. You have people who are underwater on their vehicle loans. Repossessions are at a halt that are at an all-time fucking high, right? So what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do when the economy takes a turn, you lose your job or you get a pay cut, and you can't get to work? Fuck, and your car gets repossessed. Fuck, and that's on your credit. Shit, that affected a lot of people in the years after 2008. What's it going to be like when we get our next major recession? People say that we're in one right now. Some people are in denial. I truly believe that we're in one. By the textbook definition, we're in one, or we were in one when we had 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth. All of a sudden, we're just going to rewrite history and rewrite the definition of recession. Okay, whatever, right? But what's going to happen to these people who are upside down, who are going to be upside down on their car loans, who are already upside down on their car loans, and enter into a economy in which even used cars are beyond their affordability range, right? How are they going to get to work? America is a very car dependent country. The infrastructure there is just doesn't exist for public transportation. It's too fucking big. Honestly, it really is a huge fucking country, and you can't expect every single small cities, every single small town to have, state-of-the-art fucking transportation. I'm not going to defend it. Somebody's going to say, well, Japan, Europe, whatever, and I'm not going to lie to you. The public transportation in Europe is godly, bro, especially Germany. I loved it. They didn't even charge you on Saturdays because everyone was drunk. They're just like, fuck it, it's too much of a hassle to get everyone a ticket on Saturday, so, we're not going to check your card. And I'm like, holy shit, this is dope as hell. Anyway, the point is, what's going to happen to the auto loan guys? What's going to happen to the people who are going to be upside down on the car note if the economy tanks? And are they going to be the reason why it does, right? Not they themselves as a person, but they themselves as an economic factor. Or, like, is that going to be the hidden accelerant? Are student loans going to be the hidden accelerant? That's my top 2 contenders, right? Maybe consumer credit card debt as a third. And I say maybe because it's not really like that can be contested easier, and it's not always what is it called? Like, yeah, it is life-changing and life-altering, but it's not so much as somebody playing the Repo Reaper music, pulling up to your house and taking away your car. How are you going to get to work, right? If you have credit card debt, you can talk to a loan advisor, you can talk to a debt collector, and set up a payment plan. I mean, not to belittle someone in insane levels of credit card debt, I'm sure that's fucking stressful as shit, but, they'll work with you to get your money, right? But can it affect it on a macroeconomic level and topple the scale and be just that thing that causes everything to go on fire? Absolutely, right? And that's completely ignoring geopolitics. That's completely ignoring a war. That's completely ignoring anything else, right? I'm going to take a sip of this root beer. Spreacher. I got it at SmashCon this year. I got 2 cans. This shit is fucking gas. Oh my god, and only 45 calories made with real honey. Oh. Okay. That all being said, what do we do? What do we do, right? Because what I've done is express my mindset, my worries, my speculation on the unknown, things that I only know so much about, things that I have no idea anything about. You know what I'm saying? But I see it, and it affects my mindset. So what do we do? Well, what is there for me to do besides just keep going? What is there for me to do besides pushing on? I had the video on AI and job security, and I gave tangible examples of why it is that I'm not entirely worried about it. And even if it's a legitimate issue, if it's a legitimate concern, well, adapt, But one thing I will say is the last thing I need to do. And I did it for a long time. This is coming from a place of experience. If you're listening to this and you're just stunned, stunned in your shoes, analysis paralysis really getting to you, all the shit, right? Because you're seeing all the bullshit that's going on and you don't know what the fuck to do. Brother, just fucking do it. I'm serious. Go for that degree. Go for that fucking schooling. Of course, do your analysis. Don't just pick a fucking degree or a career field that's not going to pay you money, right? But what you don't want to do is wait and wait and wait for the sky to fall before you do anything else, right? Because you're better off getting a job and the sky falls 3 years ago and you got some money set aside. You got some fucking shit you can rest on. The more money you save and all this other stuff, all of a sudden, hey, things are a little less scary because I have that cushion that I built up over years. I don't mean like in a prepper sense where you got gas masks and food in your basement. Maybe that's smart, who knows? But what I mean is, if you got a little bit of money saved up, you're actually being philosophically consistent with what you're telling me. If you're telling me that, dude, if you're telling me all this doomer shit, like I'm just telling you, well, the most logical thing I should do is be financially responsible now, so that way if something happens in the future, whether it's a recession or depression, it's a little bit more manageable. You know what I mean? We might not ever get another Great Depression, right? But recessions, they're kind of inevitable. Things ebb and flow. Things don't just always go up, right? Which is why when you sign for something long term and permanent and you can't afford it, I mean, you're just not taking into account life issues. There was somebody in 2003 that signed up for a 7-year car payment that was way more money than they needed, lost their job in 08, and they were upside down on their fucking car, and they got it repoed, and oh my god, dude, getting a repo, having that shit on your fucking credit report is a pain in the ass. It's one of the hardest things to get expunged. It really is brutal, like seriously. So let's be smart. Let's be smart today. Let's not take the $1,200 a month fucking loan on your sedan, right? Let's not buy a project car and use it as a daily. Let's not, take up all the student loan debt in a major that won't get you a job just so you can get away from your parents. Let's not do that shit. I mean, seriously. This story sucks. The one I'm about to tell you. It really does suck, right? I knew this guy. He wanted to be a cop, right? But his parents were like, no, you gotta get a degree, whatever. Okay, whatever. I get where they're coming from. I get where he's coming from. Then he goes to a fucking school, right? A university. Just jumps straight into the 4-year, right? And this was a state school, right? But like he was paying in-state tuition, and this was in 2019. He tells me this shit. This is pre-COVID, pre-interest rate, pre-fucking inflation. Nobody was ever saying that word back then, right? Bro, this dude was paying like $13K a semester, $26K a year. A year, buddy. Crazy. Just in tuition, right? We're not counting dorm. We're not counting meal plans. You didn't have a car then either. All right. Well, maybe he had one. I don't know. But still, right? And it's like, holy shit! Are you fucking joking? Like I was stunned. I was shocked. I was like, fuck. Because for me, my mechanic program, for all of it, because it was ran by a community college, right, was only $13K for the whole fucking degree. You know what I mean? The whole associates, right? All 2 years is just like 12 or 13K. He's paying that a semester. And then, but this was a degree in like criminology or something. And I'm sure you can do something incredibly useful with it, right? But You know, fuck. So I lose contact with them. Fast forward like 2 or 3 years, right? And I hear from uh, the friend group of my girlfriend about this guy. And dude, life just took a fucking turn. Oh, you can't even recognize this dude anymore. He's a total neat. And I get it. I was there, right? But it's like he's a sea urchin, dude. He doesn't want anyone in his life. He's vindictive. He yells at people. He's racist. And I don't mean like haha racist. I mean like racist. And it's crazy, right? Because it's like, bro, you weren't racist when I was friends with you back then. What the fuck happened, right? Wild. Life sucked. Life sucks for him right now. And it's because he didn't make a wise decision back then. Do I blame him for it? Do I blame him entirely for it? No. But we can learn from that sort of lesson. We've all heard of these stories. We've all heard of the people taking crazy amounts of money to go to an art school, you know, all this shit. Another really, dude, shout out this YouTuber. Side note. Major side note. I love this guy. I remember watching his shit back in high school. I wonder if my search history there exposed some crazy shit. I doubt it. David Razzie. Peep his channel, bruh. Love it, bro. Love it. Hey, this guy's real. Like, he gets real. Anyway. Back to the main discussion. We gotta learn from what's going on and what could occur, right? Be smart about it. Also be realistic, right? This whole AI is gonna take my job. Why would I join IT or tech? Sounds a bit ridiculous to me, buddy. You know, it's a little bit too pie in the sky. You know what I'm saying? Because AI's always been here. Yeah, like we're making advances in the tech and shit, but like be for real, man. You know. And to like analyze the source. Like, are you really afraid of the economy, or are you letting it fuel? What's it called? Not laziness, but it's like an aversion to decision. Not like, I don't want to say cowardice, like, because that's too strong of a word. But I think we as humans in general can kind of, well, some people, right? They would rather not make a decision. You know what I'm saying? So because it's just so easy. It's so easy not to make a decision. It's so easy not to sort of do something as difficult as like potentially facing the consequences. It's really hard to make a move, right? So are we letting something as like big, big topic, right? Like, are we letting something as huge as like fucking, you know, the economy prevent that? I don't fucking think so, right? How are you gonna let it? Because it's like dude, let me put it this way, right? If we're gonna take a historical example, besides mine, right? Besides mine, forget about the mechanic thing. Forget about me still taking classes in the middle of COVID, even though it's obvious that I'm not gonna get a job when I graduate, right? Whatever. Forget about it. There's just take this hypothetical example. There were still people in 2007, 2008, 2009 going through university, going and pushing towards a career, right? And those people have careers today. Maybe it's not the same one, but those people are employed. They still kept pushing, right? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna say? You're just gonna wait this inflation thing out? You're gonna wait this recession thing out and not do anything? You know what I mean? Like imagine you're 18, imagine you're 20. Your mom looks at you and she's like, hey, you know, you gotta do something. Let's do something, right? And you look at her and like, dude, the economy is like, you know, really tough right now. I don't think, you know, I'm just, there's so much to consider. And it's like, what the fuck are you, like, yeah, I get what you're talking about. I understand it. At a big level, I get it. Big picture, I get it. But like, bro, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna sit around and wait for it to end like it's the rain? Fuck no, dude. Hell no. No, sir. I'm not gonna sit here and play goddamn Warframe and World of Warcraft and Fortnite and wait until Jerome Powell walks up on the stage with some charts and says, hey, the economy's doing great now, we're recovering. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna wait for some president to say that. I'm not gonna wait, bro. I'm not gonna wait. What are you gonna wait for? Dude, there's some gray skies ahead, bro. I'm scared. We all are. We're all concerned. But we're not gonna stop and stare at them. We're gonna fucking walk through them, dude. You know? I'm not gonna... Oh, dude. I'm not gonna make a U-turn on the highway just because I see some clouds, bro. Some gray fucking storm and clouds. I'm gonna push through it, bro. I don't know how bad the storm is. I don't know how bad the rain is. It could be a light drizzle. It could be a fucking thunderstorm, bro. Hail and shit. Fuck it. I'm still driving through. You shitting me? Cause what else am I gonna do? I'm gonna be driving anyway. You can't go back. You can't go backwards. My analogy doesn't even work. How the hell are you gonna make a U-turn? It's not even a U-turn. You're basically saying I'm gonna pull over on the side of the highway and wait until that rain that I see in the horizon passes over me. Motherfucker, this could be a mirage. You have no idea. I have no idea. Maybe we do well. Maybe things go back to normal, right? We kick this inflation shit away. You know, the American dream's back. Who the fuck knows? Who knows, dude? Who knows? Maybe you make something out of yourself. But here's the thing you have to consider. There are people out there that are not waiting, that are not going to wait. Like, they see the same storm as you. They're on the same level as you, right? But they're not going to fucking sit around and wait for it to pass, right? And there's people out there that are winning. They're winning. They're doing good. And by good in life, I don't mean making 6 fucking figures or some arbitrary bullshit. I mean whatever parameter you can give them, there's somebody doing it, right? There's somebody getting their degree. There's somebody getting their certification. There's somebody, there's somebody buying a house, right? There's somebody getting married. Who knows, man? There's somebody making it happen. And that somebody can be you. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not in a couple of months. Shit, maybe it's 5 years from now. Who knows? But for you to get to that point, you gotta keep going. You gotta keep pushing. What the fuck are we gonna do? Well, I can tell you what we're not gonna fucking do. You fill in the blank. You know what I'm saying? Shit. I get it, dude. You gotta, like, step back and realize that, like, whoa, all this, like, chart shit, all this chart analyzing, all this fucking news watching, all this shit that I've done, you know, being hyper aware of everything, you know, all this energy I could be putting towards going forward and making something and building something productive. I mean, seriously. Everyone has capacity to do it by their own means, by their own methods, right? Even someone who's homeless, right, is still pushing forward, is still scrounging up their money, is still trying to find a place to stay, a place to eat, a place to bathe, and bounce back. I've seen people bounce back from homelessness despite the economy, despite what's going on. You can do it too. You're not just bouncing back, you're building ahead. At least you don't live in your fucking car. At least I think the perspective, this perspective, is forced in your face when you meet someone who has that sort of from the brink story. Those are my favorite stories because you can just tell that this person's gone through it, bro. Real shit. And came back. Or is going through that shit and still pushing forward. It's admirable, and it's something that you have to emulate. And I know you can do it. You got to keep pushing. Have a great guy. Holy shit! Right at the end. Have a great day, guys. God bless.